Hello. In this short video, I want to talk about what we've released in the 1.1.0 version of the Chocolatey CLI. So these are release notes that we can see here. What we've included in this release are a couple of bug fixes and a couple of improvements. I'm going to start with the improvements because they kind of lead on from the previous release of the 1.0.1 version of Chocolatey CLI. Now, what we found in that 1.0.1 release of Chocolatey CLI was that we released a version of Chocolatey that didn't work with the currently installed version of the Chocolatey license extension. And we got ourselves into a situation where Chocolatey became completely inoperable, and you couldn't do anything without doing manual interventions. So what we've added in is a series of improvements to both Chocolatey CLI and a new corresponding release of the Chocolatey license extension, where we will attempt to detect if you are installing Chocolatey or upgrading Chocolatey, more specifically, into a system where it will potentially cause issues. So the improvement there, as we've noted, is support installation checks for incompatible license extension when running upgrade Chocolatey. So what you'll see now are warnings and suggestions at the point of the upgrade that you're installing into a system that could be incompatible. And the expectation there is that the installing user will then say, oh, actually, I need to stop. I don't want to do that anymore because I'm going to put myself into an unknown state. But in order to handle those edge cases where folks know what they're doing and they know that the potential incompatibilities, they're okay with them, they can still move forward. And that's where the second improvement, which is support runtime checks for incompatible Chocolatey CLI, etc., but provide the ability to use the -- skip compatibility checks option. So if you've read through the release notes, if you've understood all the implications as to what was done in the release and why your installation may become incompatible, and you're okay with that, then you can either pass in the skip compatibility checks option at the point of installation, or you can set a feature that does the exact same thing. So you can do Choco feature enable, disable compatibility checks, and at that point, you're entering an unsupported state, and you basically need to accept that, and that's the intention behind using that option or that feature. So that's what that was. Like I say, we're trying to prevent Chocolatey from getting into an inoperable state as a point of doing an upgrade, but also allowing folks to do it when they really need to and they know what the situation is that they're getting into. The other improvement there is that it was pointed out that we were still using an older version of 7-zip. I think we were using the 18 point something release of 7-zip. There hadn't been any CVEs on 7-zip, so there'd been no need to bump to a newer version. But we took the opportunity while we're doing this release to bump to the latest 21.07 release of 7-zip. So that's now bundled within the installer for Chocolatey, and it's also been updated on the version that is accessible through the Chocolatey website for the purpose of installation. The other things we've added here are a couple of bug fixes. I think I'm right in saying that most of these bug fixes have come in from community contributions, mainly I think from around the cake is a lie again. Fix for Python alternative source does not handle the all keyword correctly. There was an edge case there where the all keyword, which is used normally when you're doing a Choco upgrade all on Chocolatey packages, that isn't supported on the alternative source for Python. So what the CakeSLI added was specific handling to ensure that it correctly showed that at the command line. Fix for the incorrect error message is displayed when Chocolatey config becomes corrupt. So there's a scenario in Chocolatey where the chocolatey.config file can become corrupt. And when that happens, obviously Chocolatey can't function because it needs to know what that configuration is in order to move forward. But what was output to the command line was an error message that didn't make any sense. And I think I'm right in saying that this was Corey on the team who fixed that issue. So that will now accurately reflect what's going on, rather than showing an error message that doesn't make any sense. Next fix was when running Choco outdated, the wrong exit code is shown when there is a pin package and the ignore pinned option is being used. I think this is the cake is a lie again. I don't have a system in a situation where I can show what's happening here, but effectively what was happening was that the exit code from the chocolate outdated command can reflect the number of outdated packages. So you can use that exit code to take action if and when needed. But if there was a pinned package and you use the ignore pinned option, the exit code didn't accurately reflect the outdated packages that you were actually interested in. So that was a bug fix to address that. There's another fix there, which was for Windows PowerShell incorrectly identifies a PowerShell file that is UTF encoded with a bomb as being signed if it is a single new line. So this was a very, very bizarre edge case, and it was Corey on the team that found this. Corey has a habit of finding really, really obscure edge cases in Chocolatey and then fixing them. So this one was that Chocolatey will attempt to, or Chocolatey will look at files that have been Authenticode signed, and it will try to do stuff with that signed file. But there's an edge case where Windows itself will think that a file is Authenticode signed when that file is an empty PowerShell file. And the reason that that has happened is because a version of PowerShell, I'm probably going to get this wrong because I don't really know the ins and outs, but a version of PowerShell added a checksum of a signed empty file into the Windows level of these files are signed. And as a result of that, when Chocolatey attempts to do stuff with what it thinks is a signed file that is an empty, all things go wrong, right? I'm not explaining that properly. Go and dig into the issue that's linked there and the corresponding pull request. But effectively, we in Chocolatey are handling that edge case by essentially ignoring any file that is below a certain file size. Because basically, once you have a signed file, it's bigger than a certain number because there's a lot of characters in that Authenticode signature. So we can ignore files that are below a certain threshold because we know that they're not signed. Long story short, it was a complete edge case. Corey found it, it's been addressed, and we fixed it. And then unable to install Chocolatey using PowerShell core. There was in our setup.psm1 file that is contained within the Chocolatey package, we were attempting to do something with a method or an option on a method that doesn't exist in PowerShell core. So what we're doing there is we have basically done a check that says if we're running on Windows PowerShell, we can do this. If we're running on PowerShell core, let's do this. So that will mean that Chocolatey will now correctly install if you're running through PowerShell core and also if you're running through Windows PowerShell. So that was it. The reason that we put this release out quite quickly after the last couple of releases was mainly around providing this additional support to prevent folks from getting into a scenario where Chocolatey was completely inoperable. So that was the driving force behind it. If you have got any issues with it, feel free to reach out. But for now, I think that's it. Thank you very much.